Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cannabis in Focus. My name is Andrew D'Angelo, and I am your American host today. You're used to seeing Otto, but Otto's not feeling good today, everyone, so I'm going to host the program. Let's send our good vibes to Otto to get well. And we're going to start with our guest. You can see this is a very exciting moment for all of you listening in Cannabis in Focus because our guests are the organizers for the very first medical cannabis conference in France, which is happening next month. I got to speak at the very first medical cannabis conference in Sweden a couple years ago. Many of you were there or you were tuning in on YouTube or Facebook. And we're going to crank it up and do it again in France. So I want to welcome our guests, the organizers of the conference. They're going to tell you all about it. We have Kristen, Tim, and Charles Burry and their family. And introduce yourselves. Tell us about your background and how this all came to pass. And please let the audience know what's going on with medical cannabis in France as you do that.
Kristen, go
Wonderful.
ahead.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, thank you for that awesome introduction. We are super excited to be bringing the first ever medical cannabis conference in Bordeaux, France on October 26th. It's a Saturday, and we're proud to be announcing that it is women-led by myself. We have been living in Bordeaux, France, and it is becoming legalized as of January 1st, 2025. So our initiative is to unite everybody, bring all of our expertise from a global perspective, share cultural experiences and business experiences, and learn all about what's happening in France. So we welcome you to join. And later on in the podcast, you're going to have access to some information that has not yet been released. So stay tuned.
Well, that was our amazing season. And my name is Tim Burry. I'm the CFO. For me, I'm super excited to make this happen. I love advocating for patients. I'm a patient myself. Many family members are patients. I've been helping many people get through pain, discomfort, through many different remedies with cannabis. So I'm excited that France is starting to open the doors for different indications and make it available. And I'm here to help push this across the board and help everyone have access to more plant-based medicines.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. First off, I want to say thank you, Andrew, so much for inviting us to this platform to let everybody know about our event. Everybody, my name is Charles Massal. I'm the COO of Medical Resource Association. And Kristen, Timothy, and myself, we've been working all throughout the world on cannabis, letting everybody know, bridging the gap between doctors, dispensaries, patients as well, too. And yes, we're excited to have everybody come join us in Bordeaux on the 26th of October. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here and kind of spread the world. And I think Tim and Kristen kind of expressed a little bit more about what we're about. And I'm just happy to be here.
Fantastic. Well, France, January 1st, we have a program starting in France. And Sweden has a program also that is similar to France. It's pretty restrictive in terms of the medical conditions and the process by which patients get access to medicine. So could you talk a little bit just about what are the medical conditions that patients can access starting January 1st? And how is that going to happen? Is it going to happen in pharmacies? Is it going to happen in associations or clubs? And, what's going on generally with cannabis in France when, as I've been working with you on this conference, I learned that, and I did not know this, and I'm sure maybe the audience doesn't know this, France has the highest consumption of cannabis rate in Europe. So everybody's nodding their heads, and so we have the country with the highest consumption rate in Europe. That's been pretty strict when it comes to cannabis up until this moment, right? Really strict,
Sure.
So strict that I've never been to France because I don't go anywhere without my medicine. I was too afraid to go there.
Yeah.
As you should
So,
be, as you should be. I'd like to chime in on that. I think I'm also a patient, and having been living in Bordeaux and experiencing the struggles of getting my medication has just been insurmountable. And I would say the stigma is probably equal, if not higher, as in Sweden. And they are definitely not discussing or rolling out any type of generalized education for the public. They have not rolled out general education, continuing medical or legal education. So we felt the immediate need pre-rollout, pre-legalization to get everybody together so we can teach physicians, caretaker, parents, brothers, sisters, families. What is this all about? Why are we now being told that cannabis is okay to have inside of our pharmaceutical cabinets? So I think presenting the scientific data, the evidence-based research that's been done is really been not exposed properly in the country. So we have called all of the stakeholders who have worked tooth and nail over years to see this come to fruition. So we're collecting all of those people, putting them inside of one auditorium and presenting all the facts and figures on how to gain access to this medicine. But more importantly, for France, why is this medicine being approved? And I think on that level, we're going to make a really big, huge impact on France in general. Yeah.
I'm glad you gave us that background because I think we have a similar problem in Scandinavia with you have a framework, but nobody's educating folks about it. You have access, but nobody knows about it. Or if they do know about it, they're too scared to talk to their doctor about it. The doctors are too scared to talk to their patients about it. And so nothing happens. You have a program that people can't interact with and get access to. And this one of the wonderful things I love about Arium Life and what's happening in Sweden with them is they're trying very, very hard to do that education and to create these access points and to lower the stigma so that people feel comfortable talking about this with their physicians and with their families, right? And so I think it's fantastic that you're educating the community before it even launches, right? So that people can be prepared when the launch occurs. Um, could you refresh us our memories, Tim, or maybe Charles, off the top of your head? What are the 6 medical conditions that are approved in France starting January 1st? Do you know?
They
Charles, you
have
have that?
not, yeah, I don't think
So I'm
that,
not sure if they're finalizing
yeah,
them,
I
if I
think
remember
it's,
correctly. But we do
hmm
know, so by the show, we should have a finalization on that because I believe they're going through some regulatory stuff right
I
now.
see.
Not
But
only, it's only tincture oil. There's no smokable. And in France, there's a big anti-smoking campaign. So it might take a little while for flower to become something that's looked at in the way we see it in America.
but just to clarify, there's some conditions or underlying
well,
conditions.
and
Okay.
Go ahead, Kristen.
mhm. So, and I think more importantly, I'd like to speak about, yeah, I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that our goal is to also educate from a harm reduction standpoint of view. So, let's agree that regardless of legality or legalization, consumption's happening. You mentioned that earlier in the podcast when you did your introduction. So, France being the highest consumption country and having zero harm reduction education is just something that I think needs to change. So
Yeah. Also, let's
our point of view
clarify that
is
it's illegal consumption. It's not legal consumption. Therefore, people, like to Kristen's point about the harm reduction, we're not, understanding where that medication or where it's coming from exactly. So the harm reduction part is very, very important.
yes, and I think more importantly, for people who may be, let's say, never going to be accepting cannabis as a modality or a therapeutic modality within their practice, it's still important to understand what's happening inside of their patients and how it interacts with other pharmaceuticals and their patient outcomes. So, regardless of agreement or disagreement on what it is or why it's being introduced, it is something that physicians and healthcare providers and families need to all know about.
All right, Barry, let's just sum up a few things here for the audience. So, in France, no smokables are in the program. You can only get oils in the pharmacies once the program begins. I assume there'll be tinctures, there'll probably be capsules, and maybe one or two other delivery methods for the oil. And there's a lot of stigma about inhaling cannabis in France, and there's a lot of, I guess you could say,
Vaping is
we
prohibited, by the way. Vaping is a prohibited, no vaping is permitted in France whatsoever. I
tobacco
thought that was
included.
important for you to know.
Does that include tobacco or just cannabis?
Zero vapes are permitted.
Okay.
All of no vapes for
Is France
tobacco
still
and or any.
I see. But are cigarettes still legal there?
Yeah, of course. Vaping is legal using
Yes.
nicotine. Nicotine
Okay,
products
using
are still
nicotine.
legal. We're talking about
Okay.
cannabis, THC. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So when this launches in January, you're not going to be able to get the oil in a vape format. You can only get the oil in a tincture or capsule. Is that right? No, that's not right.
Not 100%
We don't
sure.
As
know.
far as we have,
Definitely be oils and tinctures for sure. The question
that's
is,
Yeah.
why we're
how
doing the
does,
conference, right?
how does the French government want to regulate that and use that? And that's why we have patients and doctors that were actually in the French medical cannabis full-on study. So we can talk about how it worked on both sides and where the outcomes came. And they were getting smokable cannabis in a lot of these studies, even though it's not coming out to be allowed yet.
And
Okay.
just to specify too, the word that we're using is called extracts that are available. Extracts. So it's not flour. It's just extracts.
Yes, I use the word oil because that's what an extract generally is. You're extracting the oils from the plant. So, okay. Rules are still being made.
Yep.
The conference, one of the things the conference is trying to do, similar to the REM Life conference a couple of years ago in Sweden, is influence those rules. And so that to make them a little less strict, because if we can say influence the regulators to include vape, let's just say we were able to do that, that increases the accessibility to a lot of patients, right? Because some patients really need to inhale cannabis because of the quickness by which the delivery system gets them.
Correct. Yeah.
And some people can't digest cannabis in their gut for whatever health reason that may be associated with that. So we're still in this moment where all smoking is bad, therefore smoking weed is bad, and people are making these sweeping generalizations that simply are ignoring the nuances that all of us know about when it comes to medical cannabis.
That would be a good segue for us to show the faculty and the expertise that we're bringing to the table. So maybe we could just look at our faculty and run that. And there's a QR
Monty,
code that we're
Let's
including.
run the slides.
Monty, if you could put the slides up, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. and the faculty circuit. So I wanted to make mention of her and our group, our Empower Her group. They are our media partners. So take that QR code. We hope to see you there, and it's going to be a very exciting moment.
And
Lots of press
and
coming.
Kristen, I'm sorry to cut you off. You might want to repeat that because I believe there was audio when we played the video. So if you want to,
Oh, okay. You mean my sound bit didn't make it? Okay.
correct, yes.
Mm.
Well, this is great. We've got the QR code up. People can let's keep it up there for a second as we keep
Yeah,
talking here.
sure.
So tell us a little bit more about the event itself and the programming that you've got a lot of activations. We're in the wine capital of the universe here. And we're in the gourmet food capital of the universe here.
Yeah,
Um,
Michelin
and,
star.
and,
Yes,
and,
exactly.
right. And it's the fall, the leaves are turning colors, chestnuts, mushrooms are in season.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about, all the things you've planned for the attendees and everybody who's coming to the conference. You've got a wonderful
Sure.
program. Yeah.
Sure. Well, we are doing a day prior, we're doing a pre-conference Welcome to France champagne reception at the Intercontinental Hotel, where we can welcome all guests from near and far. The next day, we're commencing our day of education, which is, again, medical, legal, industry, and it will be a very global audience, but also a global presentation because we're bringing experts from around the world, but also a concentration for what's happening specifically in France. Followed by that, we also have an exhibitor salon where you're going to meet key people from different brands that are emerging or coming into the marketplace, and also well-established brands. And then it will be followed by a VIP network reception. All of this is taking place at the immersive and experiential City of Wine, which is a big staple in the town of Bordeaux. So we're very excited to be presenting this in concert with the City of Wine and the stakeholders from that venue. So we're super
Yeah.
excited, and we hope that they come.
Yep.
You're downplaying the significance of this venue, I think, a little bit. So the Cité du Vin, right, is, I'm sure I'm butchering that, but it is a giant museum event space that it talks about the history of winemaking in that region and
Not
also
only in the region, by the way, in throughout the world. And if
throughout
I
the
can,
world.
I'll just jump in to kind of
Yeah,
express
please.
a little bit more about the museum and how beautiful this is to have it at a wonderful place. By the way, for our American folks who are watching, there's a huge connection between the museum, the history of the United States, and of course France. As you know, the place where we're holding the actual speaking is in the Thomas Jefferson Auditorium. Now, this Thomas Jefferson Auditorium, of course, as our American friends might know, Thomas Jefferson was not only the president, but also the ambassador of the U.S. in France. And he actually discovered the areas where we are located in Bordeaux and created a listing to actually help create a classification within Bordeaux. So it's quite interesting to have that connection. And to further that point, the museum that we are going to be holding this is actually funded by the American Friends of La City. And anybody watching this can actually be an ambassador to donate to continue the education and continue the culture of not only wine, but the culture of France in general. So this is the museum is not only France in the region, but throughout the world of producing wine. You're going to learn many aspects of wine, the production, the manufacturing of wine, and also the culture of wine, what it has to do, the impact that it has worldwide. So it's yes, Kristen was downplaying it a little bit, but I'm here to pump it up a little bit
Yeah,
to let
yeah.
you know that this museum is probably one of the most interesting and interactive museums that you probably had a chance to visit, because it's very ecologically friendly, by the way, might I add. And not only that, but we're using technology in this museum that's kind of ahead of its time, so to speak. So I can't wait for everybody to kind of explore the museum, understand the history that it has and what it has to offer for the event.
And I have a
I'm
caveat to add to that. Top of that, both the museum, La Cité Vivante, which is on the Garonne, with beautiful view of the Chaman-Delmas Bridge, that is one of the top 5 places to see in Bordeaux. Not to mention the Opera House, which is right across from the Intercontinental. So by coming to the event, you'll be seeing some of the top places in Bordeaux. Beautiful architecture, beautiful food, delicious wine.
And maybe
yes.
because I'm nervous, is it a UNESCO site? I'm sorry if I'm.
We're actually a World Heritage Site as well, and
Okay.
both the opera and many other places through the city, there's actually brick walks you can go through and find the World Heritage Site stars and go through the city and see all these beautiful places.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
and
thank you, Andrew, for, yeah.
well, look, it's set and setting is really important for how we go about educating folks, and I think that your investment in this venue is so smart, because I think that not only are people going to have a really good time and be able to participate in lots of different activations, whether it be the VIP reception or the wine or the champagne or the museum itself and all the different interactive exhibits and or the tables with the brand representations and brand activations, and not to mention all the scientists and lawyers and incredible thought leaders that from all over the world that are coming to this event. So a lot of effort has gone into this, everybody. If you can't make it to Bordeaux, you can see this virtually with this QR code here. We also you may also be able to experience the conference through REM Life and these channels right here. So we're working on that. And I just think I'm really looking forward to it. Oftentimes these conferences are not in such spectacularly beautiful or amazing spaces that this one is in. And I'm glad you mentioned the Thomas Jefferson connection, Charles, because when Thomas Jefferson went to Bordeaux all those years ago, they didn't have appellations for wine.
No,
And now appellations for wine is one of the foundational aspects of how winemakers differentiate themselves from all the other winemakers in the world.
exactly.
Because
And not only for the winemakers, but for us as consumers, we understand the difference between appellations. The way it's for example, to get a little technical about the grape varietals, not only the grape varietals, but the percentages of what we would expect from those areas. So yes, great point, Andrew.
And what I'm leading to is, okay, we are, those of us participating in this conference, those of you listening that participated in the Sweden conference with REM Life, we are the Thomas Jeffersons. Yes. Okay, and I can tell you right now in California, we're figuring out appellations for Humboldt County weed, Mendocino County weed, the Emerald Triangle, trying to make sure that these farmers in California have a connection to the land itself and the weed, so that when legalization spreads across the globe and we can finally export our craft cannabis from California, people in France can see the appellation, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and then 50 years from now, there might be a museum to weed right next to the museum with wine that's in Bordeaux, because 50 from now we may have a lot of cannabis being grown in this region, and they may have appellations for that. And so I see like a bigger picture here, right? I think it's very intentional what you're doing here, right? Because you're linking these stories, you're linking the past, and then you're linking it to the future because
In the
I
present. Yeah.
right in the present moment, like I can see 50 years from now, right, that we are going to have these weed museums. There are going to be appellations. It is going to resemble. It's not going to resemble alcohol. I don't think it's going to resemble something unique unto itself because cannabis
Yes.
is unique unto itself. And so anyway, this is very exciting. Let's see, is there anything else you'd like the audience to know about the conference before
Can I
we
just
part ways?
add one thing? I
Mm,
just wanted.
Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to nerd out a little bit and with Andrew here and just explain to everybody. I know he's talking a little about appellations that are working in California, and I just want everybody to know a little bit more about appellations because there's a word that's a French word that we're going to be using probably throughout this time and even in the future. It's called terroir. Now that word doesn't translate into English. However, there's three elements to the word. It's the human element, it's the natural element, it's the soils and subsoils. And interesting enough, if you look at us longitudinal, Bordeaux is very similar to where California is on the map. And of course, yes, the Earth is kind of on an axis, so we're not exactly the same, but we're pretty close. And I just want people to understand that this word terroir that we're going to be using in those appellations will better express where your cannabis or where your medicine is being produced. So it's a very important. And I just wanted to nerd out a little bit, but thank you so much, Andrew, for that explanation into the future. And I totally agree with you. I think there's going to be a museum of cannabis to understand exactly how this was produced, how it was created, and the same way that we're going to be visiting La Cité de Vin.
And we will all have statues in that museum.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. That's a joke. What's important to us is that people have access to their medicine and not so much taking pictures of statues of me.
Yeah, there's going to be a statue of you for sure. I know that.
Well, mine would be a portrait. Mine would be a portrait. So okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's the QR code, everybody. You could probably get this on RM Life's website and all that. It'll be up there. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you to our guests. And I'm so looking forward to.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yes, and we'll see everybody. We'll see you in Bordeaux, October 26th.
Bye. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Otto, we're ready for the news. Are we ready for the news now? Okay. Everybody, I'm going to just give you a quick news updates from the United States because Otto is sick today, so it's going to be me. And our first story is about national politics. Here in the United States, we have a big presidential election right now. Kamala Harris is the Democratic Party's nominee for president. The Republican Party nominee is President Trump. And both of these candidates, for the first time, have come out in support for either descheduling cannabis or outright legalization. We have Kamala Harris, who is advocating for outright legalization in this article from Marijuana Moment. And she doesn't get into a lot of details on how we're going to legalize at the federal level. And really what we'll learn in the next couple stories that I'm going to talk about is the way we do it has a big impact on our community, our small farmers, our craft farmers, the people who have been working with cannabis for decades, all of you watching right now. We don't want to get locked out of the industry and have nobody but corporations to buy weed from, do we? No, we don't want that. So the way we legalize is really important. And so there's like two phases to this. First, we got to get everyone to say legalization. So we're doing that in the United States right now with these two presidential candidates. They're both coming out for some kind of legalization. So the second part of what we have to do once the election happens is making sure that the framework for that legalization, it does not create monopolies or oligarchies. Basically, we don't want the whole supply chain to be run by corporate interests. We want our community to have a place in that future as well. So that's a big news from the United States. We, for the first time ever since Prohibition happened in 1937, do we have both candidates for president embracing legalization. So that's story number one. Now let's drill down into story number two. And here in California, where I am, we have a governor. And the governor just vetoed a bill that would allow small marijuana growers, craft cannabis producers, to sell directly to consumers at state-run farmer markets. So let me try to explain this right now to you, because here in California, if you're a small farmer, the rules of legalization don't allow you to sell directly to the consumer. You have to use a distributor. So you have to sell your weed to the distributor, and then the distributor sells the weed to all the retailers. What we've been trying to do for 6 years in California is give the farmer the right to sell directly to the consumer without having to go through a distributor. This increases the profit margin for the small farmer. It allows the small farmer to have a direct relationship with the consumer. And it allows the brand of that farm to tell its story directly to the consumer. And when you do this, you can create loyalty with the consumer, right? So pretty simple. We've been doing direct to consumer in the underground market for about 100 years. So this is natural. This should just be a natural thing. The governor vetoed the bill. Why did he veto the bill? And a veto basically means the governor has gone against the will of the legislature and is vetoing the bill that they passed. In California, the governor has that power. And so now the farmers are not going to be able to sell directly to the consumers unless they pass another bill with a different governor. And this governor still has a year or two that he's in office. So this was a big setback for us in California. And it illustrates my point about how you legalize weed is really important. You can legalize weed all day long, but if you lock out our community from the market and you don't let farmers sell directly to consumers, or you don't allow associations to occur like we're seeing in Europe now, okay, then legalization doesn't do anybody any good except the corporations. And they don't generally produce very good cannabis and very good medicine, more importantly. And so this was a setback here for us in California. We've been working very hard to get direct-to-consumer sales. We passed it through the legislature. That was a battle. And now the governor vetoed it. And, you know, people, I'm very disappointed in the governor. As a citizen of California, I'm very, very disappointed in our governor. This guy calls himself a progressive and a liberal, and he just did something that's pretty darn conservative. Why did he do that? Who knows? Is he protecting the big corporations that have the supply chain in California right now? One might be able to conclude he is. So not happy with this at all. And it just goes to show you we have to pay very close attention about how we legalize weed. And now our community here in California, we're going to have to raise hell against this action that the governor took, and put a lot of pressure on him to sign the bill next time. All right, closer to home in Europe, our next story is about Ukraine. And we now have medical cannabis coming to Ukraine. They have a new law, and they have a list of medical conditions. If we scroll down, I think we can see them on this article. But what I noticed about the medical conditions, that PTSD was not included. And that was curious to me, since Ukraine is fighting a war right now. And I figured, PTSD would be included in that list of conditions. And maybe it was, and I'm just missing it. But MS is in there, epilepsy is in there, chemotherapy is in there, and shingles, other very serious diseases are in there. So Ukraine, even in the midst of an invasion from a foreign country, in the midst of 2 years of a brutal war, they are seeing the need for medical cannabis in that country. They're able to get something done politically, even though they are at war. And, if a country at war like Ukraine can figure out a way to legalize medical cannabis and establish a framework, you'd think just about every country on earth could do that, right? They're in the middle of a war, and they're able to do it. So this should be, I hope, inspiring to other countries in Europe and Asia and other places in the world that are very restrictive, that don't have any legalization of any kind, not even for medical. And the good news is, for all of those of you in Europe, change is starting to happen, even in places like Ukraine, even in places that were once part of the Soviet Union are now starting to embrace medical cannabis. So our message of freeing this plant and treating it as a medicine and making sure everybody in the world has access to their medicine, that is spreading across the globe. It may not be happening as fast as we would like, everybody. It may not be happening everywhere we would want it to, everybody. But I want all of you to be inspired by this, because the way we are going to make change in Scandinavia and other places in the world is one conversation at a time. So when you are at your family gatherings for the holidays, you have to talk about cannabis and medical cannabis and how it helps people. And if there's people in your family that are against it, you have to try to persuade them and show them the evidence and the science, and let them know about patient stories so that they can understand that this is an issue of the heart. It's not an issue of the head. It's not an issue of rationalization. It's an issue of empathy, and that we have a medicine here that can help a lot of people that cannot be helped by current available medicines in the pharmaceuticals or other treatments. And cannabis should be available to patients if they so choose to use it to help heal themselves. Is there no natural right available to us that is more given to us by our Creator than the right to heal yourself in any way that you feel is necessary? That is a human right, and our rights are spreading across the globe, everybody. This is very good news from Ukraine. And I will wrap up the news by just saying thank you for tuning in. Keep creating change wherever you are in the world. Keep tuning into Cannabis in Focus. Keep supporting REM Life. And come to this conference in France if you can. If you can't tune in virtually, keep talking to your families. Keep talking to your communities. Keep taking the risk of telling these stories and creating change wherever you are. We are on the march with our movement. All of you are part of the community and the tribe. Onward and upward we go. And I will see you all next time here at Cannabis in Focus.